because I believe, essentially the viewers bring something of the experience into that kind of the last kind of making a film, like, people watch it and, what do they make of it? So I try to leave, the space for the audience to bring in their own experience and, their own emotions and memories. So
Good morning, Marina.
how are you?
I'm fine, thank you. I say good morning because it's good morning in New York.
Yes, exactly. And I guess good in Austria, right? You're in...
Yes. Yeah, late afternoon here. It's so lovely to speak to you, Marina. You're a filmmaker and a producer and a writer.
Yes. Writer, filmmaker, and everything related by extension.
Yeah. And filmmaking, has that been something that you were interested always as a child as well?
Well, I always loved film, theater. I was a movie buff, but actually my writing career began with playwriting. I started out as a playwright. I was writing for theater for quite some time before I shifted to film or expanded into film.
Okay, so writing was first.
Yes, exactly.
But you're originally from Russia.
Yes, from St. Petersburg in Russia.
Okay, and when did you go to New York?
Where?
When?
I came to New York in the late 90s, and it was kind of unexpected, I guess, transition. I came to the U.S. First to the West Coast, to San Francisco, to visit my friends, and then I decided to stay. One thing led to another. I had my play done in San Francisco, and that was kind of a big catalyst for me. I came to New York. I applied to the playwriting program at NYU, Tisch School of the Arts, and and then I moved to New York.
Wow. But I mean, in Russia, did you also write then?
Yes, I actually wrote my first plays in Russia, and I was kind of a part of a new playwrights movement in Russia, which was, quite interesting, actually. It was an incredible experience. But then I continued writing in English, and that was kind of a new chapter.
Yeah, I can imagine, because it's, when you write in your own language, it's different from writing in a language that you don't, that's not your first language.
Absolutely. So that kind of became a big discovery for me, writing in another language. It's not just, the possibilities that the language offers you. You kind of discover a new reality, I believe. At least that was the case with me when, you kind of transition to another language. And as a matter of fact, one of my first plays that I wrote in English, it was called To Love in Another Language, which was kind of a reflection of how I was feeling, in my personal life as well as in my creative life.
And was it also a bit of a culture shock for you, coming from Russia to America?
Not as much as one would expect. As a matter of fact, living in New York was not that much of a shock. It was more of a kind of, sense of, I guess, adventure and, rather than a shock. Later on, when I moved to some, other parts of the country, I spent some time in the Midwest, and that was more of a culture shock.
Oh, is it?
But New
Okay.
York wasn't actually that different. All, big cities are alike in some way.
But writing for you then, I mean, did you tap into your upbringing in Russia, for example? Was that sort of, could you see how that had an influence on how you sort of saw the world then, or how you wrote?
Yes, absolutely. But it's kind of interesting that my background affected my writing in a kind of less explicit way. I know some writers who, immigrated or like moved to a different country, like early in their life, they kind of write about the experience directly. I never really brought a play or a screenplay that kind of directly addressed my Russian experience, at least not yet. But I feel like everything I write, somewhere in the subtext at the core, there's that sort of like, strong, cultural, I guess, layer. As a matter of fact, one of my first films, it was a short film that I wrote, and we filmed it in New York at several locations in New York, and then someone who was familiar with St. Petersburg told me, "Oh, this looks exactly like St. Petersburg."
Really?
which was kind of strange, and I thought, oh, how could it possibly happen? But at some level, I was kind of like shaping the world similar to the world of my childhood.
I can understand a little bit, because I came from South Africa and moved then to England, and I was, it's also for me, you look at things differently because you come, so I came from a different background, from a different upbringing. So suddenly you are more aware of things that people who grew up there take for granted. So they just assume it's like that. And for me, many things I would think, oh, I didn't know, or we didn't do it that way, or so you're much more aware of little things that other people don't necessarily would notice.
Yes, exactly.
And then playwriting. So that was the first love, or that was the first interest, is to write plays.
Yes, and it kind of happened that I discovered my voice through theater, even though it wasn't exactly planned. I guess like any writer, I try different forms, poetry and fiction, before I kind of found the one that felt most organic to me, and it happened that the playwriting was kind of that form.
Oh yeah, and as a child in Russia, did you go to the theater a lot, that you sort of got inspired there?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we used to have, and we still have, great theater in Russia, and especially in St. Petersburg. So yeah, that was kind of one of my first loves, theater, and I still kind of keep it, even though I haven't written a play in quite some time since I transitioned to film.
Yeah. Okay, so now then you transitioned, but what was sort of the inspiration to transition, or what was the key moment where you thought, okay, now I'm writing for film?
It was after my first, one of my plays was adapted to screen. Actually, I was a part of the process. I worked very closely with the director. It was, it was actually a stage monologue called The Silent Love of the Fish. And we produced it in New York. It was produced at actually several theatrical venues. Was quite a successful production, albeit a small one. And Joanna Adler, who was the star of that show, she is an amazing actor. And it was partly because of her that we decided to make it into a film. And so I had to write a screenplay, and I had to approach the same idea, but in a very different way. I had to add, another character, had to basically create the entire world, because, in a stage monologue, it was just, the verbal language. And then I didn't direct that first film, but I worked very closely with the director, and, I was present in all of the, shoots, and we shot it over the course of like 3 days, I believe. And yeah, that was kind of a huge, seduction for me.
Yeah.
After that, I began writing for screen and more often, and then eventually I decided to direct my own film, and and that was another kind of I guess important shift in my life.
But tell me now, first, when this happened, where you had this stage, the play that was performed and then changed to film, somewhere would you say that because you studied in New York, or because you had that network, that it was easier for you to be able to do it?
Oh yes. That's actually an interesting point, but because film is so much a collaborative medium, much more so than theater. But that first production, I knew nothing about, film writing for film, directing film, but I worked with people who were, amazing artists, and it just having, that contribution that kind of allowed me to imagine, film as basically this synthesis of, not just my own creative efforts, but everyone else's. And I think being a part of the community, yes, it's something that allowed me to move forward in, my creative life, whatever form, my creativity took. It's kind of a huge part of that, yes.
And you talk about the collaboration, and I've spoken to a young filmmaker just a while ago, and he was also talking about that and how wonderful it is, these collaborations, how everybody brings something to the table, basically, and that you sort of learn from each other, or get inspired by each other. And do you find it also like that?
Yes. From the very, early stages of the process to, casting, of course, actors, this is kind of the most, noticeable contribution. And this is something that I had very little experience with. I never directed theater. For some strange reason, I never wanted to direct my own plays. I always worked with other directors, although I was always present, at rehearsals. And so, working with actors was kind of a mystery to me. I was always a little bit intimidated by actors, because once, you put something on the page, you sort of like, you have a certain vision of what it is, but, how do you convey to actors? That was a bit of a challenge for me. But once I started really working with actors and became involved in that process, now it's actually my favorite, part of making a film.
So if you write a character, do you see in your mind what he or she looks like? Or you know, that you have a picture of what you think this character looks like?
Yes, but not necessarily, in a very specific way. The way I write, it's, I write, realistic plays and screenplay, but I also, uh, I like kind of, I guess, drawing from some other kind of, cultural and, layers of my memory. So often my characters are archetypes rather than, specific like people. So I kind of allow a range of, possible, physical types or, even psychological types. And that's kind of part of why I enjoy, auditioning, or working with actors, and just, trying to imagine different possibilities and different, ways the characters can communicate with each other, different types of dynamics. I guess any playwright, it's sort of the ultimate dream of any playwright, mine at least, is to sort of be in the room with not just, one or two, actors who would kind of, bring your characters to life, but all possible, kind of versions of your characters at the same time. This is something that I actually have to, in a way, find a way to discipline myself, because in film you only have a chance to do it once. So you have choices, but those are tough choices to make.
So are you involved then in the decision who plays the character? And can you immediately see? So can you, when somebody starts speaking or auditioning, can you immediately see, okay, this is the person?
Yes, you definitely sense when someone has a potential, to embody your character. It's rare, when you meet an actor and you think, oh, this is the one. It's more over, oh, this is kind of, this can work. This is something that, someone who can, bring something, to this particular character that maybe I didn't quite see before, or something that is interesting for me, to explore. On a few occasions, like for instance, with my first film, we worked with an actress, and I kind of brought, that film specifically for her, but this is rare.
Okay.
Usually it's kind of the way around.
And because this sounds very much like, sometimes I speak to a composer and they say they have the music, what it should sound like and everything, and then give it over to the orchestra, and then sort of the orchestra also has to then make it their own and play and sort of, and then the composer would say sometimes it ends up being more beautiful than they expected it to be. So do you find that also with your film?
Yes, absolutely. It ends up being something quite different from what I expect. And it's also, I guess the way it worked for me, the work is kind of born, more than once. The first time when you put it on the page, as a script. But then when I direct, I don't direct all of my scripts, by the way, and I don't even want to direct all of them. But, some of them I feel it's kind of, I should be the one, to kind of bring it to fruition. And so when I direct, I sort of I don't use my own, text, whatever is on the page, as the kind of ultimate, Bible. In fact, I allow myself to deviate, and I allow actors sometimes to improvise, sometimes dialogue, sometimes, just add, some of the moments that weren't in the script. So in a way, I direct my own screenplays, and kind of allow other elements to seep in. So it becomes like making a documentary film based on, that particular script. And then kind of the final stage is editing, which is, that's kind of another, and often the final stage when, the work is actually born. Sometimes I go back and re-edit, some of my.
And it sounds as if, that I can imagine that the actor who plays the part then sort of can also bring something to the character that you maybe didn't think of, but because they're playing the character, then they could give some input as well.
Yes, and sometimes I even change some of the parameters, some of the characteristics of a certain character, like one of my films, Sea Child, I wrote a screenplay with this idea that the main character, she's a girl. I thought maybe about, 10 years old. And when we got to filming that project, and it was actually filmed in Colombia, and I worked with an actress who was older. She was an adolescent, and that brought a whole new layer to the character, which I thought extremely, interesting. That sort of like sexual awakening, and the kind of vulnerability that comes with that age. It ended up being quite a different film because of that as well, including like other elements that the locations, production design, added to that film. So that's kind of one of the most extreme examples.
Yeah, but it sounds amazing that that you can, or that you're willing, that you're so open to allow it to then be explored like that.
Yes, and that's part of what makes directing so interesting to me, and that's it's also kind of it's something different from writing. I'm not working on the same it's the same material, but it keeps evolving, it keeps developing, and it kind of, that's what keeps me kind of interested and involved in that project, that I kind of allow it to grow, and I allow myself to grow with it.
But when you start writing, do you already see sort of in your imagination what the story or what the film will look like before you continue, or do you have this idea first and it's sort of in a visual in your head, or is it just story?
No, I begin with a very strong image. Sometimes it's one image, is a series of images, and I always work from image to words and not the way around.
Mi mamá estaba de luto desde que nací. Ella conoció a mi padre en este lago. Y aquí vivieron felices siempre, hasta el final del verano.
No te vayas tan lejos.
Nunca voy a regresar. Está allí, por algún lado.
Are you lost?
I think to me that's kind of it's the most important element. I think that allows me to write. If I just put the words on the page, they don't mean anything to me. I think sometimes I struggle, with trying to visualize and kind of create kind of a strong, sensory sort of visual like basis for whether it's a scene or a story. And if I don't, find that basis, it might, come out kind of stillborn.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
But what inspires a story for you? What would be the inspiration to start a film?
It's interesting. Most of the time, it's more than one thing or more than one source. I sort of think of each kind of idea for it. You have ideas like all the time, just like come up like with, you hear something or you see something, on the street, you think, oh, this could be kind of an interesting film. But in order for it to kind of get to that place where, I'm ready to start writing, it has to be more kind of like a crystal than just like, one thing. And by that, I mean, feelings, images, concepts that come from, different parts of my life, this somehow come together and, form, this thing, this kind of image idea, that crystal idea. And then I'm ready to start working to kind of start unraveling, and see what is inside that crystal, what are, kind of put it against the light and see what would emerge.
You make it, you describe it very well, but it's also a film is not, it's not just you. It's not just you're involved in the writing and then also the directing, but then you have to also get the funding and you have to make sure that it gets filmed and so on. So that process, how do you do that? I mean, does that come easy for you?
Yeah, that's probably the hardest part when it comes to film. That it takes money.
Yeah.
To make one, not just, wonderful collaborators and, talented artists and vision. It's easier with short films. I guess I was lucky. I usually work with producers who either bring, money to the project or, use resources when they have them. So, yeah, all of my short films, they were produced by other people.
Okay.
Although I did contribute something. Actually, the first film that I directed, I had to produce it myself, and I decided to do it very quickly and found actors and, put together the team. And then we didn't have any money initially, so everyone pretty much worked for free when we filmed, the entire, the entire film. It actually took 3 days, to film, which I find kind of this perfect, maybe time, almost all of my short films were filmed in 3 days. I don't know. It's kind
really?
of
Yeah. That's quick.
Yeah. But then, editing, the footage that we, got in 3 days, that was probably the most expensive and challenging part of the process. And I was able to get a grant from the foundation for contemporary arts. And, that's the only way I could finish that film. And I didn't edit it myself. I never do. I just don't have the kind of technical expertise but I'm now working on my first feature film, and that's kind of a whole other level, of funding that
I can imagine.
And so I've been working with producers on getting the funding for that film, and it's been a challenging process.
I can imagine. And also, do you have to make something that is sort of sellable? Do you have to make something that's commercial? So, or do you stick to your themes, to what you want to say and what you want to write?
Mm-hmm. Having worked in this industry, for quite some time, and it is my understanding now that nobody really knows what commercial is. Mm-hmm. Something becomes successful, and and I guess people who are kind of preoccupied with commercial considerations, they're trying, to kind of create something similar, to what had worked in the past, and that becomes commercial. But I can't really kind of think, in these terms. I can only, write from a place that is real for me, that is organic to me, and then thinking of, what people will, because I believe, essentially the viewers bring something of the experience into that kind of the last kind of making a film, like, people watch it and, what do they make of it? So I try to leave, the space for the audience to bring in their own experience, and, their own emotions and memories. So I'm kind of a big fan of surrealism in that sense. When I write, from my own subjectivity, I allow, for the subjectivity of the characters, to create some kind of multifaceted, experience. It's not just, written from the perspective of one, protagonist. But I also try to leave space for the audience to bring something of their own.
But it's also a bit of a cutthroat business that you're in. I mean, it's and the competition must be very fierce in America.
Oh yes. Not only in America, I think it's kind of the same in Europe. But yeah, especially in America, because a lot of people are making film. A lot of people, try to, break into film. And it's also, in a way, it's both harder and easier to find funding, for films in the States, because people go, to investors and they invest their own money, they kind of basically look for money in places, in all kinds of places. I think in Europe, it's probably a little bit more structured, which is something I appreciate, but it's hard, to say, like, which kind of structure is better,
but it is a long, it's also a long time frame, because you've made a lot of films, and it takes time for you probably to build a name also in the industry?
Yes. It's a long game.
Yeah.
It's not something that happens overnight, or sometimes it does, but you have to kind of, build toward that sort of like, one night.
Yeah.
And yeah, it takes time.
And do you find that sort of that way that it's easier to get funding for your films because of success that you had?
Yes, I think when people can see your work and and the credits when you've been sort of tested and vetted, and it does help. Yes, but it's also a question of personal connections, and I'm still not so much of a producer. I mean, like I said, I'm kind of producer by extension, but I work with other people who are much better at this aspect of filmmaking. So I guess I like it that way.
So, and this must be very creative for you to be able to write and direct the film, because sometimes the director is not necessarily the writer of the film.
Yes. So far, I've only directed my own films, and I guess that what kind of attracted me to directing, this kind of possibility to fully realize my vision, but to the extent possible. And now I'm kind of curious about directing other people's work, and sometimes I, watch films, and sometimes, like the story, and I like the script, but I'm kind of thinking, oh, what if it would have been done, differently? What, if I directed it, like, how would I approach, a certain scene? How my concept, my approach would be different, which means, maybe I'm kind of ready to make the next transition to directing, someone else's work. But like I said, even when I direct my own scripts, I kind of approach it sort of as a thing that already exists, not necessarily a script that I've written, but yeah, well, this is the text. How can I take it to the next level? So, yeah.
Yeah, I can imagine it's because it's the story you created, so you know where you want to take it.
Yeah, but sometimes the story kind of takes itself to, a place where it needs to be. I think part of the director's job to let go of control, whether it comes to, allowing your collaborators, actors, and designers, production designers, and, DPs, editors, to bring something of their own, but also allow the world to kind of sip in. Sometimes, you shoot on location in a situation that's very different from, the one that you mentioned. It would be, terrible weather, unexpected, events. And some directors might just be completely, disturbed and unsettled by that, but I feel it kind of brings something new into the film that makes it richer, in the end. So yeah, letting just kind of allowing things to happen is kind of part of the director's job that I appreciate as well.
I was going to ask you if something doesn't work out as you planned or as you saw it, how quick are you to change, sort of to use it to the advantage of the film? And you're saying now that you are very much open to do that.
Yes. Yeah, to the extent that it doesn't, completely kind of ruin your vision.
Yeah.
And Yes.
So you can think on your feet. You're very creative then.
I'm trying to, yes.
Okay.
It's easy.
But how easy is it for you to just give over control, sort of, not to feel you have to have everything the way you wanted it to? Is it easy for you?
No, because I'm actually, I'm not kind of a controlling, person, at least not like outwardly. So I'm, soft-spoken, I guess, in my regular life. At least that's how people perceive me. So I kind of try to, exercise control in ways that are, a little bit more subtle.
Oh,
than
okay.
directors do. And I also like to observe and sometimes, making decision in the process. So yeah, for me, it takes a lot of trust, trust kind of invested in me by, the members of my creative team, as well as the trust I, need to have in them. So yeah, I kind of prefer to think in terms of trust rather than control. I think it's kind of more essential.
Yeah, but that's beautifully said, and that's actually true. If it isn't about control, it's more about trust then. But Marina, what are the wishes still for you for the future? What are projects that you would like to take on?
Well, I'm currently working on my feature film. Actually, it's my first feature as a director. And it's a project that I've also been working on for a while in different sort of forms and incarnations. I wrote it as a play originally, and then directed a short film based on the same character. And then I created a feature screenplay based on that short script. And it's called The Fruit of Our Womb. And it's a project that's dear to my heart. And it's also, something that I keep coming back to. It means a lot to me, and it means a lot to people that I work with on this project. We're now in the development / pre-production stage, and we basically have the team, ready to go. Beautiful, much talented creative team. And we are now basically raising funds to be able to start shooting. And hopefully, in the spring of this coming year. So yeah, that had been kind of been focused on this project for at least, the last year. And my name is Marina Shron, and I'm the writer and director of The Fruit of Our Womb. The film is an intimate look at the life of an affluent Manhattan couple and a sexually fluid, vagrant girl, Christina. They plucked from the streets and taken to their home. It is the story of an instant family that starts as a utopian dream, blossoms, and then devolves into a nightmare.
Your nerves might make you stutter, but I'm still here.
I grew up in Russia in a conventional family, broken yet loving. But when I came to New York, I had to leave my family behind. Years later, when writing Christina's story, I wanted to imagine what it would feel like for someone who has no family and no preconceived notion of what a normal family is or should be, to find a home of her dreams and then have it taken away because she doesn't fit in. Christina is a unique character in that she explores the world by touch.
I'll be patient while you...
And through her journey, she discovers intimacy with all the wonder and danger inherent in it. The film is a social parable about the corrupting power of privilege. But it is also a thriller and a romance. It alludes to the biblical tale of Sarah, Hagar, and Abraham. It takes a hard look at family, one of the most sacred and deceitful institutions in our culture. But unlike The Handmaid's Tale, my story is set not in some dystopian future, but in present-day New York. And the villains in the story are not so easy to pinpoint. Lynn and Joe, they're good, well-meaning people. Yet, when given the opportunity, they cross the line from charity to barbarity with a startling ease.
It's hard to speak your feelings, but there's so much time to find your voice.
And why is this project so dear to you?
Because sometimes it's hard, to say. It's like saying, why, you love all of your children, and yet, some of them seem to require maybe more love and understanding. But it's kind of something that comes from, deep within me, from the place that I don't quite understand. And I created this character that kind of keeps fascinating me. It also deals with the themes that I've been working, throughout my career in different forms. It's motherhood, it's family, it's relationship. Between these two women, it's a difficult relationship. It kind of explores this, bond that these two women develop, and they come from, very different, the opposite worlds. And one of them is a teenager who, experienced trauma in her life and comes from very difficult, background. Was abused from a very early age. And the woman who takes her in is someone who comes from privilege, but she also experienced trauma. It kind of allows you to connect with that young woman in the first place. And their relationship kind of goes through different stages. It starts as kind of mother-daughter dynamic, but then it becomes eroticized. So they become lovers, and then it kind of relationship that keeps evolving. So I guess for me, it's embodies a lot of things that I kind of want to convey through my writing, through my work, and I also kind of see it very clearly and vividly as a film. This is the kind of script. It has to be a film. It was written as a film. And it's interesting, although it was even published, as a screenplay quite recently, so it now exists as a book. So when I direct it, I'll probably, change it, in some way. But it's kind of good to know that sort of, on some level, it's already out there and people can, view it as a kind of a complete, work. The book is a very different, form of art, but now I have to make it as a film.
Okay, well, so you can say you've planted the seed already. Yeah.
Good.
Yeah. But Marina, this was so lovely to talk to you. I really admire you and your outlook and how you go about your work and your career, and very inspiring.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
I'll be gentle while you grieve.
Motherhood takes courage and imagination.
I'll be patient.
Lynn is the one who longs for a baby, but ultimately it is Christina who completes that journey.
Just breathe, just breathe, just breathe, just